I have a lockbox made by the greatest lock picker of the 19th century.
Saddle that was used by Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves.
This saddle is from Dances with Wolves.
The episode kicks off with a seller presenting a vibrant and original 1978 oil painting titled Surf Rider, featuring the classic cartoon character Woody Woodpecker. The real draw is the artist, Walter Lantz, the legendary creator of Woody himself. Rick is immediately captivated, sharing a nostalgic story about how a pesky woodpecker outside Lantz's honeymoon hotel window inspired the iconic character. The seller, however, gets straight to business, placing a hefty $10,000 price tag on this piece of animation history.
That's a Los Angeles Dodgers autographed baseball bat bench. It's a history of not only the Los Angeles Dodgers, but going back to...
The scene shifts to a new customer carrying a heavy, ornate box. This isn't just any old container. It's a 19th century lockbox made by Alfred Hobbs and Company. The seller and Rick dive into a history lesson, explaining how Hobbs was the American locksmith who famously picked the impenetrable British Chubb detector lock at the 1851 Great Exhibition, creating an international scandal. The seller is looking to get $500 for this solid piece of security history.
I have a lockbox made by the greatest lock picker of the 19th century, American Alfred Hobbs.
Corey gets down to business on the Hobbs lockbox. He acknowledges its cool factor and great condition, but argues that its niche appeal as a collectible makes it a slow seller. He starts the negotiation with a lowball offer of $100. The seller counters, and they volley back and forth. Finding a middle ground, they finally seal the deal with a handshake at $350, a price that satisfies both the seller's bottom line and Corey's budget.
Thinking I can maybe sell it for $500. I'll cut to the chase and go $350.
How about $375? I mean, I think that's reasonable.
Rick's art expert, Brett, arrives to assess the Walter Lantz painting. He confirms its authenticity, explaining that Lantz, a classically trained artist, created these oil paintings later in his career. However, he delivers a sobering reality check. The auction record for a Lantz painting is only around $3,500. While a retail setting might command a bit more, Brett firmly values this piece in the $4,000 to $5,000 range, far below the seller's initial asking price.
It seems a little high, so I've called in my buddy Brett, and he'll figure it out.
Armed with the expert's appraisal, Rick makes a firm offer of $2,000 for the Woody Woodpecker painting. The seller, visibly disappointed, counters by dropping his price to $7,000, but this is still far above the item's assessed market value. Rick patiently explains that while he understands the sentimental value, he simply cannot monetize it and must base his offer on the cold, hard resale potential. With neither willing to budge, the seller decides to walk away.
No, because I don't think I can sell it for that. I mean, I would give you $2,000.
Yeah, I don't think,
The pawn shop doors open to reveal an unprecedented item, a massive custom-built bench and matching coffee table constructed entirely from autographed baseball bats and balls. The creator explains it's a comprehensive history of the Dodgers spanning from their Brooklyn days to Los Angeles, featuring roughly 170 signatures. He states that his goal was for every Dodgers great to have touched the furniture. He then stuns everyone by announcing his asking price, a whopping $60,000 for the unique set.
I started making these benches in 1999. It's a history of not only the Los Angeles Dodgers, but...
Shifting gears, another seller presents a complete 10-volume first edition set of the Delphian Course, printed in 1901. He explains that this was an early 20th century home study program designed to provide a liberal arts education for women. While Rick appreciates the book's good condition and the interesting history behind them as a pre-college educational tool, he remains skeptical about their market value, knowing that large, multi-volume sets from this era are notoriously difficult to sell.
This is really cool. Where did you guys get these?
I got them at a swap meet.
So obviously you guys shop at the same store?
The seller of the Delphian Course asks for $250, citing a previous sale of a second edition. Rick immediately shuts down that hope, explaining that being a first edition doesn't automatically make something valuable. He points out that bulky encyclopedia sets simply don't have a strong collector's market. He makes a final offer of $50. The seller, wanting an amount easier to split with his partner, negotiates up to $60, and Rick agrees, closing a small but swift deal.
Small town, you know, your husband worked, you took care of the kids, but you read a book at night, and one day a week your club met.
Sports memorabilia expert Jeremy is called in to evaluate the colossal Dodgers bench and table. He is impressed by the sheer scope of autographs, highlighting the incredible rarity of a signature from Charles Ebbets, the team's former owner. However, his tone shifts when he examines the construction, pointing out that drilling holes through the game-used bats and balls is considered sacrilegious in the collecting world, as it permanently alters and damages the original memorabilia.
Dodgers, table, and bench. He wants a whopping $60,000 for this.
Jeremy delivers his final assessment on the Dodgers furniture. While the individual autographs have considerable value on their own, the act of drilling into them for the furniture's construction has destroyed their collective worth. He estimates that, despite the impressive roster of names, the entire one-of-a-kind set is only worth between $10,000 and $12,000 in its current altered state. This valuation is a massive blow to the seller, who invested much more in time and money to create it.
The autographs themselves, they all have considerable value. Beyond that, quite honestly, I'm at a loss of words.
Rick, using the expert's appraisal, makes an offer implied to be around $8,000 for the entire Dodgers set. The seller immediately refuses, stating he has far more than that invested just in obtaining the autographs themselves. He believes wholeheartedly in the piece's unique value and is confident he can find a buyer who will pay his price elsewhere. With a wide gap between them, the seller thanks Rick and leaves, rolling his gigantic creation back out the door.
I don't think you're gonna take like $8,000 for all this.
Not at all, no. I have
A lighthearted subplot runs through the episode, culminating here. Inspired by his frustration with easy trivia games, Rick announces he is developing his own mobile app to be called Rick Harrison's Trivia Challenge. The moment he reveals the name, Corey and Chumley immediately begin mocking it, calling it unoriginal and lame. This provides the episode's comedic throughline, showcasing the typical playful friction and sarcastic dynamic between the Pawn Stars team members as they debate the app's potential.
Yeah, I've hired guys. I got coders working on it right now.
What's it called?
Rick Harrison's Trivia Challenge.
Well, your name sucks.
As the episode concludes, Rick tallies the day's results. He successfully acquired 2 historical items, the Alfred Hobbs Lockbox for $350 and the Delphian Course book set for $60. However, he missed out on the 2 big-ticket items, the Woody Woodpecker painting and the Dodgers memorabilia bench, as the seller's expectations far exceeded the market reality. It was a day of modest wins and major passes, perfectly encapsulating the unpredictable and often challenging nature of the pawn business.
I don't think I'll ever win a Nobel Prize. I'm using it as an example that if I achieve...
Who uses that as an example?
The episode begins with the crew discussing the strangest foods they've ever eaten. The old man shares that he's eaten fish heads and rice, and even horse, which he claims didn't taste bad. Chumley chimes in with uni or sea urchin, which he describes as tasting like salty Play-Doh, leading to jokes about his childhood diet. This casual, humorous banter sets the stage for the unusual and often dangerous items that are about to enter the pawn shop.
I tell you what, I've ate some pretty weird stuff.
So what's the worst thing you ever ate?
I would say fish heads and rice.
The first customer of the day arrives with a dangerous collection, 10 deactivated booby traps from the World War II and Vietnam era. He shows Rick various devices, some designed to trigger hand grenades or mortars, explaining they were used for defensive perimeter security. The seller has done his research, assuring Rick that all the items are clearly marked as inert or for demonstration, ensuring they are safe to handle and sell to specialized military history collectors.
Whoa!
You don't usually get them in this kind of condition. Usually
They're all blown up and stuff?
The seller states he wants $650 for the entire collection of booby traps based on his online research. Rick counters that the market for such items is very niche and the pieces could take a long time to sell. He makes an initial offer of only $200. The seller pushes back, arguing that some of the rarer pieces in his collection are individually worth well over $100, and the negotiation between them begins in earnest.
based on doing some internet research, I was looking at about $650 for all of them.
I'm just starting to think if they would sell or not.
After some haggling, the seller of the booby traps suggests a price of $275. Rick comes up slightly to $260, and the seller agrees to the deal. Rick concludes that while these military items might be a challenging sell initially, they will eventually find a buyer in the right collector, and the unique pieces will fly off the shelves, making the purchase a calculated risk for the pawn shop's inventory.
I'll go $260.
Okay, deal?
Deal, man. Meet you right over there.
A new customer arrives with a pair of baseball cleats she claims were worn by Yankees shortstop Bucky Dent during his famous 1978 playoff home run against the Red Sox. Corey is immediately excited, recognizing the significance of the moment. The seller shows him the cleats, which still have dirt from Fenway Park caked on them, and she states that the absolute least she will take for them is $3,000.
The famous 1978 tiebreaker game between the Yankees and the Red Sox.
Bucky Dent.
The seller of the Bucky Dent cleats now says she is thinking of asking $6,000 for them. Corey's excitement is tempered by skepticism as he examines the accompanying photograph and note. He points out that the note is handwritten, but the signature is just a printed copy, which he finds suspicious for a high-value auction item. To get a definitive answer, he decides he must call in a sports memorabilia expert.
You know, here's my concerns. I wish you had a little bit more than what I'm looking at here.
A comedic crisis erupts as the old man discovers Chumley has thrown away the broken coffee maker. Chumley tries to defend himself, saying he has already bought a replacement, but the old man is furious, proclaiming he is like a mama bear looking after her cubs when it comes to his coffee. He orders Chumley to go out and find the best coffee on the market to make up for his mistake.
Never mess with my coffee. I'm like a mama bear looking after her cub.
A seller brings in two formidable-looking rotating barrel rifles, which he identifies as .45 caliber percussion cap guns. Rick is fascinated by the unique mechanism that allows for two quick shots. The seller believes they could be from the 1870s and made by a gunsmith named William Hart, asking for $2,000 each. Rick, noting modern screws and a replaced stock, is unsure of their true value and calls for an expert.
Where did you get these?
I'm a collector, and I picked these up in a trade from a guy.
Chumley succeeds in his mission, as the old man takes a sip of the new coffee and declares it among the best he's ever tasted. The triumph is short-lived when Rick asks what kind it is. Chumley reveals it's civet coffee, and Rick explains in horror that it's made from beans eaten and excreted by a small animal. The old man, unbothered, declares it a damn fine cup of joe.
Sweet.
That is really good coffee.
What kind of brew is it, Chum?
Firearms expert Craig arrives and delivers a harsh assessment of the rotating barrel rifles. He explains that while they contain some old parts, the guns themselves were not made in the 1800s. Instead, they were assembled in the 20th century from reproduction kits, built to be functional shooters rather than valuable antiques. This revelation drastically changes the context of the items from rare historical pieces to modern assemblies.
And this one's left-handed.
Very interesting. If you look up in the dictionary, like...
Expert Craig values the assembled rifles at a maximum of $750 each. The seller is visibly angered by this appraisal, sarcastically referring to it as a crybaby, whiny-ass opinion. Rick, considering the expert's advice, makes an offer of $1,100 for the pair. The seller rejects this as too low, and a tense negotiation begins with a significant gap between the seller's initial asking price and Rick's offer.
Hey, because we do have 1830s, 1840s parts here.
$750 tops a piece. Yeah.
Okay.
The old man steps into the rifle negotiation, offering $1,500. The seller counters at $1,450, and they finally settle on a final price of $1,400 for both guns. The seller remains disgruntled, muttering that he'd sometimes like to smack the appraisal expert, but he reluctantly agrees to the deal, allowing Rick to acquire the unique, albeit not fully antique, firearms for his shop.
$1,450.
$1,400, thanks. $1,400.
Sports memorabilia expert Jeremy arrives and authenticates the Bucky Dent cleats as genuine game-worn shoes from the correct era and model. He then explains the massive discrepancy in value. Without concrete proof they were worn for the specific home run, they are worth only $300 to $400. If that proof existed, they could be worth $20,000 to $25,000. The note that says "good luck in my home run shoes" is not considered sufficient evidence.
They were up 2-0. Well, then all of a sudden, Bucky Dent's up next.
Corey offers the cleat seller $300, then raises his offer to $400. The seller, deeply disappointed, counters by dropping her price all the way to $4,000. But Corey will not budge above his final offer. Believing the shoes are worth far more, the seller decides to walk away from the pawn shop, taking the cleats with her to find a buyer who agrees with her valuation.
I'll come down to 4,000.
You'll go down to 4,000. All right, and I'll go up to 400.
The episode concludes with Rick and expert Craig at a shooting range to test the newly purchased rotating barrel rifles. They set up a friendly competition to see who can hit a milk jug first, with Rick using the double barrel rifle against Craig's single shot. The scene provides a functional and entertaining payoff to the earlier negotiation, demonstrating that the guns are, at the very least, interesting and operational conversation pieces.
2 rifles, they got rotating barrels on them. Craig wanted to shoot them, so I said, come on out.
The episode opens with a preview of items to come, including a saddle claimed to be from the movie Dances with Wolves, a vintage tattoo kit, and an 1886 Winchester rifle. Rick Harrison provides his standard introduction, welcoming viewers to the pawn shop and explaining that after 21 years, you never know what is going to come through the door, setting the stage for a day of unique and historically significant items.
Saddle, it was used by Kevin Costner in Dances with Wolves.
So how'd you get this thing?
I bought it at an auction.
A customer presents a saddle he believes was used by Kevin Costner in the film Dances with Wolves. He explains he purchased it at an auction and is a big fan of the actor. Rick immediately questions the provenance, as the seller only has a card from the movie house and some old photographs that do not definitively link the saddle to the film, casting immediate doubt on the item's most valuable claimed attribute.
There's nothing here that proves that Kevin Costner's hind end sat on it.
The seller insists the auction house assured him the saddle was authentic to the film. Rick remains skeptical due to the lack of concrete documentation, but becomes intrigued by the saddle itself. He identifies it as a likely authentic U.S. military-issued saddle from the turn of the century, possibly used as a prop from a Hollywood prop house. The item now has 2 potential value points: its military history and its potential movie connection.
But this saddle does appear to be old U.S. military. This thing could be worth a lot of money either way.
Faced with this conundrum, Rick decides to call in an expert who specializes in Western memorabilia. He wants to determine both the saddle's true age and whether it actually appeared in Dances with Wolves. The seller agrees, hopeful that the expert will confirm the movie provenance and validate his belief in the saddle's significant financial worth.
My father-in-law used to threaten me with it when I started dating his daughter.
A new customer arrives with a model 1886 Winchester rifle, sharing the humorous backstory that his father-in-law once threatened him with it before eventually gifting it to him. The seller admits he knows little about the firearm, only that it was made in 1886. Rick, a known firearms enthusiast, is immediately interested and begins to inspect the classic rifle.
Basically, this wasn't a muzzle loader where you had to put your powder in, your ball in, pack everything down. This thing right here, I imagine this took right around 10 rounds.
Rick launches into a detailed history of the Winchester 1886, explaining it was a revolutionary repeating rifle chambered in a powerful .45-90 caliber, often called the gun that won the West. He praises its design and firepower, but points out a significant condition issue. Someone has badly marred the metal where the magazine attaches to the barrel with hammer strikes, which will detract from its value.
And that's a lot of pressure on the barrel. This is one of the first rifles that can handle a load like that.
Rick gives the seller his honest assessment, stating that while a perfect specimen could be worth $10,000, this one, due to its damage, would likely sell for between $2,500 and $3,000. He then makes a firm offer of $1,500. The seller is pleasantly surprised, having thought it was only worth a couple of $100s, and immediately accepts the deal.
Slid out and someone tried to beat it back in with a hammer. I mean, it takes away from the value, but not completely.
The scene shifts to Corey and Chumley, who are looking at a complete vintage tattoo kit. The seller explains he wanted to be a tattoo artist, but no longer has the time. The kit includes liners, shaders, over 20 ink colors, a power source, and a pressure sterilizer. Corey, who is heavily tattooed, sees the potential in the equipment and is definitely interested in making a deal for the shop.
You guys gonna tattoo my face? You don't want to mess up this circle of beauty.
The seller asks for $400 for the tattoo kit. Corey counters with an offer of $300. The seller tries to negotiate to $350, but Corey holds firm at his initial offer. To sweeten the deal, Chumley jokingly offers an extra $50 if the seller can draw a good portrait of them. The seller agrees to the $300 price and attempts the drawing, which humorously depicts Chumley as an angel securing the deal.
Really? Three's what I do. All right, you say you're a tattoo artist, man.
Expert Mark arrives to appraise the saddle. He identifies it as a McClellan saddle from the late 1850s, but notes its small, uncovered seat and numerous holes, leading him to conclude it was a pack saddle, not one designed for comfortable riding. Most crucially, after rewatching Dances with Wolves, he states definitively that this saddle was not in the film, as all saddles in the movie had black leather covers.
What I love about Western memorabilia is part of the history of our country and American culture.
With the movie provenance debunked, Mark appraises the saddle's value based solely on its condition as a military artifact. He states that a complete covered McClellan saddle might fetch $1,000, but in its current incomplete state, it is worth only $400 to $500. This valuation is a major disappointment for the seller, who had hoped for a much higher price based on the Kevin Costner connection.
Well, if it was a formal McClellan military saddle and had the full cover on it and everything, they're selling for around $1,000.
Rick, now armed with the expert's opinion, begins negotiating with the saddle seller. The seller starts at $750, but Rick counters with a low offer of $250. The seller explains he paid more than that and counters at $400. Rick meets him in the middle at $300, which the seller reluctantly accepts, lamenting that his wife will be disappointed she hasn't been close to Kevin Costner.
Yeah, I can't let it go for that. I paid more than that for it, and I mean, I'm sure it is.
In a follow-up segment, Corey is at a tattoo parlor, having traded the newly acquired tattoo kit for a new pocket watch tattoo on his arm. He considers this a win-win, as the tattoo would have normally cost $350.
Earlier today, I bought a tattoo set off a guy. I'm thinking I could sneak out at lunch today and trade for a tattoo. So now I'm on my way to my friend Bundy's shop to go get a tat.
The old man confronts Rick and Chumley about Corey's whereabouts. When he learns Corey used the pawn shop's tattoo equipment to get a tattoo for himself during work hours, he becomes enraged. He declares that Corey will have to repay the shop $500 for the kit and work overtime as punishment for leaving without permission, emphasizing that Corey does not own the business.
Why the hell did he go get a tattoo in the middle of the day on my damn time?
A new customer arrives with a massive early 1900s sheet metal shear he purchased from the Stardust Hotel auction. He explains his business of buying and reselling equipment from closed establishments. Rick is impressed by the solid cast iron construction and the engineering of the historic Niagara machine, noting they simply don't make tools like it anymore.
I picked it up from the Stardust Hotel and Casino after they went out of business.
Despite his admiration for the machinery, Rick identifies a critical flaw, a large crack running through the main casting. He explains that cast iron is difficult to weld properly and that the machine must be perfectly level to function accurately. Due to this significant defect and the sheer difficulty of moving the item, Rick declines to make an offer, and the seller accepts the decision, noting the piece will likely just sit in his shop.
Yeah, you feed the sheet metal right through here. Then what you do is you come over the wheel.
Corey returns to the shop with his new tattoo, and the old man immediately confronts him. A heated argument ensues about company policy and using pawnshop assets for personal use. The situation turns comical when the old man reveals he too has a tattoo, his wife's name, which he misspelled while inebriated in Japan in 1959. The focus shifts from Corey's transgression to the old man's own tattoo mishap.
You know where the he's been.
Getting a tattoo, obviously.
What'd you rat me out? I didn't say anything.
The episode concludes at the gun range, where Rick and firearms expert Tony test the recently purchased 1886 Winchester. Tony provides a detailed history of the rifle as John Browning's first high-pressure design. They then fire the powerful 45-90 rifle, with Rick successfully hitting the target and enjoying the experience, confirming the historic firearm is both a great collectible and a functional weapon.
1886 Winchester. And now we're at the gun range to have my buddy Tony check it out.
A female customer presents a uniquely painted guitar, claiming it was both played and painted by Phil Collen, the guitarist for the legendary rock band Def Leppard. She explains it was an engagement gift from her best friend, and while she doesn't want to sell it, her daughter needs a car. She sets a high asking price of $10,000, immediately establishing this as a potentially major ticket item for the shop.
Painted and played by Phil Collen of Def Leppard.
I'm deeply impressed. So how much did you want for it?
Rick is visibly impressed by the guitar and its connection to Def Leppard, a band that defined his youth. He reminisces about their massive success in the 1980s with albums like Pyromania and Hysteria. The seller points out specific details, including Phil Collins' signature in both English and Japanese, and mentions that only 30 such guitars were made, but this one is unique for having a third pickup.
I'm assuming this is a guitar, not a gun?
It is a guitar.
Okay.
It's a very special guitar.
While deeply impressed, Rick expresses that the $10,000 asking price sounds high. He admits he could be wrong, given the guitar's iconic signer and the claim that it was hand-painted by the rock star himself. To get a definitive valuation, Rick decides to call in an expert, stating he knows a buddy who is one of the most knowledgeable guitar experts on the planet.
It sounds a little high, but then again, I could be wrong. I mean, if Bill Collin actually hand-painted this himself and everything, this is a pretty iconic guy that signed it.
Lovingly and enthusiastically, might I add.
A new seller arrives with a collection of vintage advertising materials for Mogan David wine. The collection includes glass slides, progressive proofs, and the original ad that appeared in Life magazine from the 1950s. The seller explains he acquired them at an estate sale and is hoping to get $500 for the lot, with a minimum acceptable price of $200.
The least amount of money I'll take is $200.
This is really, really cool. This was a really tedious process back in the day.
Rick gives a detailed explanation of the labor-intensive 4-color lithography process used to create such ads in the 1950s. While he finds the history and the items really cool, he concludes that there is no collectible market for them. He tells the seller that no one is going to buy them and politely declines to make an offer, leaving the seller disappointed.
I mean, you get some interesting stuff here. What do you want to do with it?
I'd like to sell it.
Okay. How much you want for it?
Well, I'm asking $500.
Chumlee takes the lead with a customer who has a pair of LeBron James's 2004 All-Star Game Wheat Edition Nike sneakers, personally signed by the basketball star. The seller recounts the story of how, as a kid at a Cavs game, he took the shoes off his feet for LeBron to sign. Chumlee identifies them as LeBron's very first signature shoe, a historically significant model.
I've got a pair of LeBron autograph shoes.
This is pretty cool.
These are actually the Wheat Edition ones. They're the 2004 All-Star Game ones, and they're limited edition.
The seller asks for about $1,000 for the signed shoes. Chumlee is interested but notes the autograph is upside down and expresses uncertainty about how that affects the value. To get a professional authentication and appraisal of the signature, Chumlee decides to call in an expert, asking the seller to hang out for a short while.
$1,000, okay? I mean, the condition of the shoe looks pretty good. It looks like the autograph is upside down.
Guitar expert Jesse arrives to appraise the Def Leppard guitar. He confirms its authenticity as a Jackson guitar, a brand favored by metal musicians, and verifies it was part of a 30th anniversary series hand-painted by Phil Collin. He notes the AP3 designation, suggesting it was one of the practice runs. He values the bass guitar at $3,000 and, with the artwork, estimates it could be worth $10,000 to $12,000.
That's cool. And he plays Jackson's. He's one of their big endorsees. Jackson Guitars is...
Jesse reveals he has called in another expert who knows more about the artwork. Meanwhile, a new customer brings in a brass antique carriage clock that has been in her family for 4 generations. She is hoping to sell it for $1,500 to buy a lot of really fun shoes.
It's been in my family for about 4 generations. It's brass, it's an antique carriage clock.
Rick examines the carriage clock, dating it to around 1900 and explaining its original purpose as a portable travel clock for the wealthy. He discovers it is broken after attempting to wind it with the original key. He informs the seller that even in working condition, it would only be worth $100 to $150, and the repair costs would exceed its value. He is forced to decline making any offer.
But the portable clocks, they still made sort of like this. This looks 1900-ish to me.
Chumlee's autograph expert, Steven, arrives to examine the LeBron James shoes. He compares the signature to known exemplars and concludes that despite being a little sloppy and upside down, it is authentic. He explains that getting a LeBron autograph is difficult, and the rarity of the shoe itself adds value, but his final valuation is much lower than the seller hoped.
Now, I know a lot about shoes, but I don't know very much about autographs, so I called my buddy Steven to come take a look at it.
The expert values the signed LeBron shoes at $350 to $400. Chumley uses this appraisal to make an initial offer of $200. The seller counters, arguing that the combination of a rare shoe and a rare signature should be worth more, and states his bottom line is $600. Chumley insists the markets for the shoe and the signature are different and will not go above $250, leading to no deal.
I put the value of this right at about $350 to $400.
In an incredible turn of events, guitar expert Jesse returns to the shop with two special guests, Phil Collen and Joe Elliott, the guitarist and lead singer of Def Leppard. Jesse arranged their surprise visit to authenticate the guitar personally for Rick, creating a surreal moment in the pawn shop.
And if this thing checks out, this thing could be worth as much as $12,000. So Jesse called someone he says will know all about it.
Phil Collen personally inspects the guitar and confirms it is 100% authentic, identifying it as Artist Proof number 3 from the Jackson 30th Anniversary series he painted. He verifies his Japanese signature and even plays the guitar in the shop to demonstrate that it works, providing the ultimate authentication possible.
30th anniversary, and for that I splash painted 10 more like practice run.
With the guitar's provenance spectacularly confirmed, Rick resumes negotiations with the seller. She holds firm at $10,000. Rick counters at $8,000, then $8,500, which the seller accepts. The deal is closed at $8,500, with the seller ecstatic that she met her rock heroes and secured a great price for her daughter's car.
What's your best price on this?
Well, all things considered, I'm going to say $10,000.
Let me give you $8,000 for it.
The episode ends on a comedic note as Rick tries to tell Chumley about the legendary rock star's visit. Chumley reveals he has no idea who Def Leppard is, leading to a humorous generational clash where Rick laments, "I hate young people," while Chumley defends the band names of the 1990s like Milli Vanilli and Blind Melon.
Phil Collen and Joe Elliott.
Who's that?
Def Leppard, right?
Yeah, Def Leppard.
They were in here.